My car clock stopped working. I thought maybe it's the points again, what I call the points, the contacts that come together and pop open, to allow the mainspring to start pulling back on the gears again and keep the thing running. But anyway, this is the back of the clock, 67 Camaro, within console gauges. I took the screws out. There's just one here, here, and a third one here. They just, come out, and this is the other side of like what was fixed in the other video where I soldered on another point right there. But anyway, what I'm trying to get to is the hole in this bracket or arm, brass, fitting, whatever you want to call it. That's as good as I can get it to show up on camera. It has worn made an elongated hole. It gets to a certain point and I have to push. See how far that goes over that whole assembly? That's quite a bit. But it gets to where the points won't come together. They'll just stop before they ever come together to pop open, unless you do push this whole assembly, like I say, over. So anyway, that's what this video is about, is trying to fix this elongated hole in this brass arm that's worn down. And I'm not going to do it like a professional clock guy, because he'd take the whole thing apart and put a bearing in here. See, here's a little bearing like what I really need that would be ideal if that's what I was really hoping to find in this old alarm clock, but something like this that I could take off and would maybe have about the same size diameter hole to hold the shaft and just solder it down. I took the back of an old alarm clock. Wasn't worth anything. I was trying to find a hole that I could use kind of like a bearing. I think these are still considered like a bearing, even though it's just a hole in the plate where the shafts go through. On this little clock, I didn't have one small enough, so I got the tiniest drill bit that I could find. Well, here at the house anyway, and it seems to be about the right size, maybe a tad bit larger than what I need. But I cut off a piece of the this plate and drilled a hole in it, and then I kept on whittling the piece of metal down that I had. See, and I'm gonna put it on top of the shaft here, not that way, but I'm going to put it on the shaft here whilst, there it goes. Now the shaft is coming through the hole just barely, and try to keep it pushed over this way. See, I have this little rubber band that's on here, so it's taking the mechanism, this assembly area that I was telling you about earlier, and it's pushing it or pulling it over this way. So the shaft is back in its original location, and it'll hold it there while I try to solder this little plate, this new little bearing, I guess you can call it, back on here, and see how it works out like that. It should hold. If the solder holds, I'm sure the bearing will hold. It'll be more like the steel shaft against the steel plate instead of steel shaft against the bronze, which I think is a softer metal. So that's the next step. This is as good of a soldering job as I could do on this thing. I know it looks messy. It looks worse on camera, really, to me, than it does in real life. It's flatter than what it appears to be on camera to me. But if you ever get this far on your clock, this little this just screws in right there. I took that out. That holds the back plate. See, there's 3 of them, like I described earlier. But if you need to remove any of them, you know, to help facilitate getting your tools in there, because it's a pretty tight squeeze, you can. It will unscrew, and that way I was able to get to my work area better. Okay, here it is with the 3 screws put back, and the part that I took off, the part that I took off. Here it is put back together. It's been ticking for a few hours with that new little, whatever you want to call it, bearing or piece of metal with the hole in it, you know, to hold the shaft back in position. So I'm sure I'll leave it on the bench like this, hooked up to the 12-volt battery for a few days and test the accuracy of it. And, you know, just make sure that it's running okay before I put it back in the car. So, hope this helps. Good luck with your project.